In lesson 2 of our social studies book. So we are doing another You Are Here. You launch a boat onto a Grand Calumet River. You plan to explore the river as it flows into the lake, Michigan. At first you drift past a beautiful landscape, but soon all you see are factories. The river water doesn't look very clean. Signs warn you not to eat any fish that you might catch. You don't see many birds or other signs of wildlife. Later you learn that before people knew the kind of damage dumping waste could cause, some of these industries dumped waste into the river. Now people and industries are working hard to clean it up. They want to make this river a good place for fish and other wildlife and for people too. So that's called water pollution. So when all the industries went along the rivers and the waterways, kind of like in the Lorax, okay? When that happened, it polluted the water because waste and chemicals got put in it, okay? Follow along, guys. Don't be looking out the window. Our hidden treasures. A natural resource is a material found in nature that people can use. People use natural resources for food, protection, comfort, and recreation. Indiana has many natural resources. They include water, trees, soil, and minerals. We divide our natural resources into two categories, renewable and non-renewable. Everyone say renewable.
Renewable.
Renewable resources can be replaced as we use them, as long as we act responsibly. Trees are one example, but non-renewable, everyone say non-renewable.
Non-renewable.
Resources cannot be replaced. The process that created them took millions of years. Natural gas, coal, and limestone are examples of non-renewable resources. So, a tree can be a renewable resource because you can plant a new tree, right? But natural gas and coal and oil and limestone, those are things that took years and years and years and years and years and years and years to make, okay? And it's natural because they were made naturally. Someone didn't just make it, right? And once it's used, it's not like you can just go back and use it again, okay? So when you use gas in a car, it doesn't turn into gas that you can use again, right? For example, Indiana has used up much of its natural gas. In the 1880s, people discovered natural gas in an area they named the Gas Belt. It stretched from central Indiana south to the Ohio River. Soon the area became the world's largest producing field of natural gas. Industries used the cheap and plentiful fuel. They built many factories there. Then in 1898, most of the gas ran out. So only 18 years after they found the gas, they almost used it all. Because they didn't use it responsibly, right? Today, Indiana must import some natural gas. Turn the page. Mineral resources. Scientists believe that about 300 million years ago, this land that is now southern Indiana was a shallow ocean bed. When fish and their other creatures died, they drifted to the ocean floor. Over time, these animals' remains built up and formed a thick, smooth rock called limestone. So it says from like animal remains and other things, they became thick, smooth rocks called limestone. Today, limestone is an important resource. Mined from quarries near Bedford and Bloomington. Quarries are pits from which stone is cut or blasted. Think of like Fred Flintstone. He works at a quarry, right? Okay, you all know who Fred Flintstone is?
No.
From Flintstones? Okay, it's a cartoon. So, they're pits from which stone is cut or blasted. Many famous buildings are built from Indiana's limestone. They include the Empire State Building in New York City and the Pentagon near Washington, D.C. So, they are built from limestone from Indiana. Those big important buildings, Guys, put your books down so I can see your faces, okay? The Pentagon, damaged in the September 11, 2001 terrorist attacks, was repaired using Indiana limestone. Coal, another mineral source, comes from plants that lived millions of years ago. Over time, pressure and heat caused the remains of dead plants to harden into this important natural resource. Sweetie. Today, people in southwestern Indiana mine coal. This coal provides the main source of heat and electricity in the state. Limestone and coal are two of the resources needed to make steel. So what two resources are needed to make steel? Grace.
Limestone and coal.
Limestone and coal. Steel is a strong, flexible material produced when wastes are burned off from iron. Steel making became a big industry here in the early 1900s. Indiana had both coal and limestone. Iron ore, the third main resource used in steel, was shipped here from Wisconsin and Minnesota. Today, Indiana produces more steel than any other state. So what do we produce more of?
Steel.
Steel. People use steel to make everything from cars to cooking pots and even the frames of huge skyscrapers. Forest resources. With the proper care, renewable resources can be reused, reproduced, and replaced. Forests, soil, and water are examples of renewable resources. If we use these resources carefully, they will be available to people in the future. Forests are one of nature's most valuable resources. They provide shelter for wild animals. They help keep soil in place. They also help Earth store water for more to use during dry times. Forests help clean out air. They provide wood for building and fuel. Trees supply the pulp we use to make paper. Parts of trees are also used to make plastics and medicines. 150 years ago, forests covered most of Indiana. As people cleared land for farming and cutting trees for lumber and fuel, most of these forests disappeared. Now forests cover only 1/5 of the state. So they used to cover almost the majority of the state. Now they only cover 1/5 of the state. But they are still a valuable resource for Indiana. Sarah. Today, people plant small trees to replace the trees they cut down. They are following the example of John Chapman. Remember, we talked about him the other day. John Chapman is also known as Johnny Appleseed. He is the real person behind the legend of Johnny Appleseed. Chapman knew the value of trees. He walked from Pennsylvania to Indiana. Along the way, he planted apple seeds and created orchards. One of the largest orchards is near Fort Wayne. So we talked about him and read that little poem and everything. We talked about him yesterday. The soil. Soil is another of Indiana's precious natural resources. Farmers rely on Indiana's rich soil to help their crops grow. Soil, like a forest, can be renewed, but we must also take care of it. When Indiana lost its forests, it also lost some important protection for this soil. Trees help prevent soil erosion. Erosion happens when water or wind wears away soil or stone. So, we'll talk about erosion another time, but erosion, the trees protect it from erosion because when the rain comes down, the trees stop the rain from washing the soil away, right? Well, if we don't have the trees to stop the soil from getting washed away, we don't have the trees to stop the rain, then the rain just goes right down to the soil and it washes it away. Okay? The trees protect it a little bit. Beneath the topsoil, or the top layer of soil, is a layer called subsoil. Everyone say subsoil.
Subsoil.
It is hard to grow crops in subsoil. We can keep our rich topsoil from eroding by growing plants and grass. Their roots and leaves provide nutrients and help hold the soil in place. Water resources. Water is our most important natural resource. We could not live without it. We need it for drinking, for washing, and for cooking. We use it to put out fires and to help plants and crops grow. We use it for transportation and make electricity. We even use water to have fun. How could we go swimming, fishing, or boating without it? Fortunately, Indiana has many lakes, rivers, and streams. It also has many underground sources of water. Rain and melting snow keep these sources of water full. But our waterways face many threats. In areas where all the trees have been cut, rainwater does not sink into the ground quickly, but it flows over the surface. This water carries soil and other materials from the ground. When it flows into the river, the soil and materials can pollute the river water. To pollute means to make something unclean. People and industries can also pollute water by allowing waste into their waterways. Drinking polluted water can make us sick. Fish cannot live in it. The good news is that water is a renewable resource. Rain and snow refill our water supply. We can work to clean polluted water and protect it from further pollution. Protecting our resources. Conservation. Everyone say conservation.
Conservation.
Means protecting natural resources by using them wisely. You practice conservation when you turn off lights or when you pick up trash from the park. You also practice conservation when you recycle cans, bottles, or old newspapers. So that's kind of like when I told you guys when I bought our happy birthday board. It's plastic and it's made where I can wipe it off and reuse it next year, right? That's me conserving paper by not getting a new poster every year, okay? Recycling allows us to use these things more than once, although not always in the same way. Many United States citizens become interested in conservation about 150 years ago. They realized that human activities were destroying forests. Soon their concerns spread to other natural resources. People worked alone and in groups to stop the careless use of our land and resources. Indiana's history is filled with citizens who helped protect our environment. Okay, you guys will read the Hoosier Greatest Resource on your own later, okay? Look at page 31. Hoosiers Who Cared. In 1915, Bess Sheeran of Gary learned that the owners of steel mills wanted to build factories in the dunes of Lake Michigan. Dunes are hills made of sand and formed by the wind. She and other local women worked for years to save the dunes. Finally, in 1925, Indiana created the Indiana Dunes State Park. But the fight was not over. Industries continued to take over the other areas of the lakeshore. Then in 1966, the Indiana Dunes National Lakeshore was created. So she's trying to keep the lakes clean, or keep the industries away from the lakes, because then they pollute the lakes, right? If they were building them right on the lakeshore, then all their waste and chemicals would end up in the water, right? So they were trying to keep that from happening. In the early 1900s, timber companies bought many Indiana forests to cut down the trees and sell the wood. Cutting down trees and not replacing them can harm the environment, but the timber companies did not worry about replacing the trees. Before long, Hoosiers saw their forests disappearing. In 1915, a magazine writer named Juliet Strauss wanted to protect a forest area called Turkey Run. She wrote to Governor Samuel Ralston and asked him to help. The governor asked Strauss to join a committee to protect the forest. In 1916, the committee bought the forest from the timber company. At about the same time, Richard Leiber was trying to convince Indiana's officials that creating state parks was a good way to protect land and natural resources. Like Strauss, Leiber wanted to protect forests and land from industry. He also wanted Hoosiers to learn about their history. In 1916, Leiber helped create McCormick's Creek Creek State Park, southwest of Indianapolis. It became Indiana's first state park. The second was the forest Juliet Strauss helped buy, Turkey Run State state park. Today we have more than 20 state parks. All right. So that was our information for today, talking about our natural resources of Indiana and how we preserved them and how other people fought to preserve those, okay?